Canada just ran out of time. As of August 1st, the US has imposed a sweeping 35% tariff on Canadian goods not covered under the KSMA trade agreement. But in a surprise move, one vital Canadian export, crude oil, was left untouched. That's no small omission. Canada supplies over 4 million barrels of oil per day to the US, most of it processed in American refineries. If Trump wanted to hurt Canada, oil would have been the place to start. But he didn't, and that's telling. Instead, the tariffs hit sectors like steel, aluminum, auto parts, and copper tubing. But even there, Canada's trade profile offered protection. Over 80% of exports to the US remain KSMA compliant. Natural gas, key auto components, and even copper forms like cathodes and anodes avoided penalties. The copper tariff, for example, only applied to semi-finished products. Canada doesn't export many of those. So what looked like a blunt force trade weapon actually landed softly. Canada didn't just survive, it outmaneuvered the hit. And it didn't panic. While Trump turned up the pressure, Prime Minister Mark Carney took a slower, calculated approach. Hours before the tariff deadline, Trump shifted the goalposts, tying trade talks to Canada's stance on Palestinian statehood. Suddenly, it wasn't about trade at all, it was politics. The message to Canada, even if you comply economically, that might not be enough. That's why Ottawa didn't rush. Carney's team signaled clearly. Canada won't chase signatures, it wants leverage. And according to experts, that leverage still exists. KSMA protects the majority of Canada-US trade. Even under pressure, Canada's position is stronger than countries like South Korea or the EU, who rushed into deals and got slapped with flat 15% tariffs. Trump's deal with the EU was flashy, energy buys, a handshake in Scotland, but Canada wasn't even mentioned. And that silence is strategic. Trump's trade agenda is built for headlines, not complexity. Canada, already deeply embedded in US supply chains, can't offer something new and shiny, it's already essential. But that also makes it harder to repackage. Canada's exports include lumber, uranium, electricity, and defense inputs. None of that stopped flowing. And that's the real power play. Trump's loud threats met quiet resilience. The Canadian economy has taken hits, sure, but GDP only dipped 0.1% in April and May. Many businesses stocked up ahead of tariffs. Thanks to KSMA, over 90% of cross-border trade still moves with minimal restrictions. The average tariff rate, just 2.3% for now. But the story isn't over. Trump may have acted early, thinking pressure would force a deal. But in doing so, he handed Canada an advantage. He admitted, publicly, that the US hasn't been focused on a Canada deal. That remark, while casual, allowed Ottawa to shift the narrative. If talks fail, it won't be blamed, it was Washington that walked away first. It also exposed cracks in the US position. While negotiators were making progress, Trump sent a mixed message. That gives Canada more reason to stall. The more disorganized the American front, the more leverage Canada gains. The bigger test comes in 2026, when USMCA faces its mandatory review. If Trump uses this moment to justify stricter terms later, Canada and Mexico will argue the tariffs already failed. Trump's early move could undercut his own hand. Meanwhile, Canada is quietly building a counterweight, a regional security and economic agreement that could give it new ground to stand on in future talks. Trump thought he was increasing pressure, but by acting too soon and too loudly, he may have handed Canada the time and narrative it needed to reshape the game. This is True State Report. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.